Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, your home education expert. Well, happy Dr. Seuss Day. It's March 2nd. And it is Read Across America Week, and Dr. Seuss is a big part of that. I remember that in school. I remember that when I was teaching, and now I still continue that on throughout my EduPlay Learning collections and curriculum and with my own children. And let me tell you, some Dr. Seuss books were key to my children starting to learn how to read and feeling confident and independent while reading. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about the 5 key reasons reading to your kids is so important. We're going to talk about vocabulary, comprehension, how it builds them as an independent reader. We're going to talk about emotionally, and also how about we're going to share that closeness, right? That feeling that we get when we read with our kids. And I'm also going to share some of the examples that I do with my kids of how we read throughout the day. In the car, at doctor's appointments, in the living room, on the front porch. We read everywhere because it's so important just to have that reading component as part of our day. So I'm just so glad that you're here. I would love to know what is your favorite Dr. Seuss book and what is your kids' favorite Dr. Seuss book. So in the Home Education with Ease Facebook group, I would love for you to jump over there. Just introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm here. I am a mom of however many. How old are your kids? Maybe where are you from? And what is your favorite Dr. Seuss book? So I would love to connect with you further right there in that private Facebook group. And as always, you can find me on all the socials. You can send me a DM if you have additional questions, or if there was something that stood out to you so much in an episode, I want to hear about it. I also want to hear, do you have topic ideas, things that you would love me to talk about in upcoming episodes? I know that I have a great lineup for you, and I have some amazing guests coming your way. We have a kids author at the end of this month, and I am so excited to welcome her onto the show. And I have lots of other guests too. But if you have something in particular that you're like, I would love for you to teach on this, let me know. Send me a DM, send me an email, or just let me know in the Home Education with Ease Facebook group. All right, so let's dive in. Let's talk about reading. One, it's something that we do every day. Maybe not intentionally, but it's something that is happening. We're reading signs when we're driving. We're reading our email. We are reading social media. We are reading whatever, right? Cookbooks, recipes, your Bible, your devotion, stories with your kids, whatever it is, we are reading. Instructions on a package, right? So reading, I think we all can agree, is a very, very important skill in life. And to instill in our children a very solid reading foundation is huge and so important. And I am a huge component of this. One, every child is going to read at a different time. I remember I had a client come to me and said, my kindergartner is not reading this chapter book like everyone else. And I was like, oh my goodness, in kindergarten, We're learning how to read. And we've gotten so far from that. I remember learning how to read in first, second grade. Now, you really should be, according to school standards, right? Your child should know how to read by the time they get to kindergarten. And I'm not saying that there aren't advanced children that are able to do that and go for it, right? I am a huge component of that. You guys know that. You know I'm on both sides of the fence here. I am, if your child is ready, go for it. Keep exposing them to what you want them to learn, right? As part of your regular day, your everyday activities, those teaching moments, right? But also on the flip side of that, if your child is struggling, don't keep pushing them before they're ready. Figure out what is that root cause. And guys, I've talked a lot about root cause on the show in terms of health. And I want you to kind of listen to some of those, because maybe it's not your child just can't read. Maybe there are other reasons that your child can't read. And that's why the holistic health aspect of it is all so important to me. Because, you know, what we see on the surface may not be all that it is. There may be deeper causes of why your child is struggling to learn or why your child is struggling to focus. So just want to start off with that. And just know that I am here to support you every step of the way, wherever you are at, wherever your child is at. Maybe you have one child that can read and has been reading well from day one, right? You were able to teach them the skills and they just took off with it. And maybe you have another child that they struggle a little bit more, but maybe their strengths are more math. Pay attention. Look at those, learning styles in your own children. All right, so let's talk about reading to your kids and why it is so important for their development. All right, so I want to know, how often do you read to your kids and what are you reading? Something for us, I have been reading to my kids since before they were even born. I remember reading some stories, you hear those things. And I didn't do it often, but when I felt like I had time, and plus I was still teaching. So, they were hearing me teach and read and all of those things even before they were born. But you hear people say, they can hear you, and I know they can. But you hear people say you can read to your child, and right. So I definitely have read before they were even born. But then when they were born, I was reading to them. I would sit there and I would read to them. Maybe not right away when we're trying to figure out the newborn stage, but not long after that, I started reading picture books and the touch and feel books, and they could see it, they could touch it, they could hear it, some of the stories they could listen to, right? That reading is so good for their brain. And then as your kids continue to grow, sitting down and reading with them, just snuggle up on the couch, in the front lawn, go to the park. But reading to them is so good, and it's going to last a lifetime. And these skills are truly going to set them up for success. So let's talk about it, especially in those early learning years. And I just want to also add this in here. You guys know I am an elementary special education teacher. Maybe you don't know that. So there's that too. But also I tutor on the side. And as I'm working with some of the families, there are some students that are struggling with reading later in life. And I'm talking middle school, as we continue to go throughout our school journey, right? And I just want you to keep in mind that sometimes we need to go backwards. Sometimes we need to go back to the skills that they missed, so then that way they can move forward. So if you do have a struggling reader, maybe there's a skill that was missed. Maybe there was something they didn't understand, especially if your kids are in school. If your kids are in school and they were in school during the pandemic, during the year after that, they did virtual school, those impacted our children drastically, whichever word, right? Because those were crucial years for them to learn how to read. And one, they weren't in person. Two, they could have had a mask on. Three, they could have been learning virtually, which was be in person, right? So there are definitely pieces that could have been missed. So keep that in mind if your child was in school during that time and they're a struggling reader now. If your children are young, that, toddler, like I even said, infant, babies, I was reading, I was singing, all of those things are so good for their development. But as you move from that 2 to 7, those really crucial reading years, there are some skills here, okay? Just keep these things in mind. And I just want to throw it out there. If anyone needs support, I am here to help you. So there is a link in the show notes below. You can reach me directly. You can send me an email. You can learn more about the Reading Fundamentals program. So there are definitely programs that I offer and services that I offer to help your child to read better. All right, let's dive in. I know I said that already, but I'm just so excited. Reading to me is such a important topic, and we're going to talk about it throughout this month because it really is so crucial to your children's development. So let's talk about, the literacy skills and how reading aloud is helping your children before they can even be a reader themselves. So I remember just the other day, I was handing one of my younger kiddos, not my kids, but another child that I see. And I said, here, why don't you go ahead and read this book? And she was like, I can't read yet. And I said, no, you're right, but you could look at the pictures, right? So don't underestimate the fact of them flipping through a book and looking at the pictures. They're still seeing words, they're seeing the pictures, and listen and wait for them to start telling the story in their own words. Because I remember that when my kids were young, where they would sit there and they would read a story, and I say that in quotation marks because they weren't really reading the words, but they were telling a story based on what they thought the words said. And that's huge. So keep those things in mind. That is a good sign when, one, you've read the book so often to them and they memorized it that they then can read that book to you. And I'm saying read, but they're not really reading it. They're seeing the words. They're making that connection. And then start switching it up. Find another book that's the same level and go ahead and give that one to them. So when you're reading aloud, they are hearing the vocabulary. So words that they may not see in print, right? Especially when our kids are learning to read or they are in those, level 1, level 2, level 3. They may be more simpler words for our kids. So then that way it's building their reading confidence, okay? But as we're reading aloud a storybook or nursery rhymes or a chapter book or even a Bible story, a devotion, something that may be higher than their reading level, they're hearing all of this rich vocabulary. And what I used to do whenever we would start reading chapter books, and I'll give you a quick little thing because I may go into this more. But I would read a chapter book, and as we would go through it, I would say, okay, first, read the word that you know, right? And then I would say, okay, you're just going to read this paragraph. Oh, now you're going to read this page. All right, I'm going to read the next page, and you're going to read the next page. And we just would go back and forth. It's slowly building their confidence as they start to read and say, hey, I know these words. And then as they were able to then read the chapters or even read that page, they may read a page and they may know a word, but they may not know what it means. And that is key as well. So keeping in mind the vocabulary, asking them that question. Yeah, you read that word, and I don't have a good example right now, but yeah, you read the word, but what does it mean? And when they say, I really don't know. Okay, great. We are going to write this word down and we are going to define it so then that way you know how to do it. I have a client that ended up getting a dictionary. So then that way she had a dictionary in her house so her children can search the words. And I love that. I've not gotten a dictionary, but I probably will soon. But what I found was a dictionary online, and the kids could type in their words, which then is practicing their typing skills. And then it would pull up multiple definitions for that word. And we would read through those definitions and we would say which word fits this story best. So that is something that's huge when it comes to the vocabulary. They're hearing it, they're seeing it, and eventually they're looking it up and they're understanding that vocabulary. Another thing is grammar. So how much grammar can you practically teach while reading? A whole bunch. You can tell them about quotation marks. You can tell them about apostrophes. You could tell them about periods, exclamation points, and question marks. You can talk to them about parts of speech. They're reading sentences that are full sentences. This is a full sentence. Here's a capital. You can talk about capitals in dates and places and names. So many things. And I know it sounds so simple when we just talk about reading, but think about how many things that you can teach just from reading. So many. We already talked about a few, right? We talked about grammar. We talked about vocabulary. We talked about emotional, right? And that confidence. We can talk about comprehension. So when you're reading a story, think about the comprehension of, okay, well, what happened next? What do you think is going to happen? All of those reading concepts and skills. Guys, you can take all of those reading lessons that may seem like, oh, why do I have to teach about characters? And why do I have to teach about, the climax and the this and the that? Teach about it when you're reading a chapter book with them. One, the emotional aspect. You're sitting together, you're snuggling up, you're just reading a chapter book, you're having fun. Two, you're diving into the vocabulary. They're reading, you're reading, building their confidence. You're talking about grammar. We're talking about comprehension and those reading skills. Oh my goodness. So many things just from reading together and reading aloud. So talk about those characters. Talk about the plot. Talk about the setting of the story. I would take chapter books, and we read the Magic Tree House books. We also have Imagination Station. I incorporate these into my curriculum because they're easy books to read, and there are always history or science components that go with it, which I love. So I love creating these units because it makes learning cohesive, where you're taking one topic and you're just diving deep and you're saying, you know what? We could take a topic about volcanoes or a chapter book about volcanoes and learn about the history of them, of the volcanoes that have erupted in the past. We can learn about the science and the rocks and the formation of a volcano. We can learn about geography. We can talk about math when it talks about how hot it is. And, just think about all of the skills that you can incorporate into one single lesson. And that is what we do at EduPlay Learning. We take one lesson, one topic, and turn it into multiple lessons. So comprehension, asking them what happens next, asking them those questions as you're reading so they understand what you're reading. You may be reading a book and they may be listening but are they understanding it? And by asking the questions as you read, you're strengthening their skills. And they're going to need that when they start reading on their own. They're going to need to know how to read a word they don't know, how to look it up. They're going to need to know, well, what does a period mean at the end of this sentence? What does the quotation marks mean? What do these indentations mean? That's grammar. What's happening in this story, in this chapter book, in this, passage? Asking those questions. And then think about rhyming, right? It's Dr. Seuss week. We are going to talk more about reading. We're going to continue this into next week's because I have so much more to share about reading. But we're going to talk about rhyming and the phonemic awareness because, one, they're hearing it, but they're also seeing it with their eyes, and then they're also saying it. So talk about multisensory, right? When we're reading aloud and the rhyming, don't discredit the importance of those rhyming words, the silly stories that happen with Dr. Seuss, the words that don't make sense. Guess what? It's allowing your child to be able to look at that word and say, according to what I've learned about sounds, I can say this word. Even though it's not even a real word, it's a made-up word, a nonsense word. But they're able to start putting those pieces together, which is going to help them a lot when it comes to reading bigger words, breaking down these bigger words and saying, you know what? I know how to break this down because I know that these letters together make this sound. And I know that this part of this word makes this sound, right? So by doing this, it's all happening naturally. It's all happening by just sitting down together and reading together. So we're going to wrap up this episode. I'm going to try to start making them shorter episodes. So then that way, and maybe you don't like a shorter episode. I would love for you to tell me that. If you want me to keep going with longer episodes, let me know. If you are like, listen, 20 minutes, 25 minutes is perfect. I can listen to it while I'm driving somewhere, or I can listen to it while I'm doing the laundry. Let me know. Or on a walk. I love listening to things while I'm on a walk. So let me know that too. In the Facebook group, send me a message. I want to hear from you. I want to connect with you. I know you're out there. I see that you're listening from all over the world, and I thank you so very much. So I want to hear from you. Come join me in the Facebook group. Join me on my in my socials or through the email. But as we are reading with our kids, it's all happening naturally. We're sitting down, we're picking a book that maybe is part of our topics that we're learning about, right? We're talking about the body, and we're talking about, this is what we're talking about for Ella and Alex, is cells and the parts of the body. So guess what? We're going to dive in deep. And some of those words are hard words. We're going to find some videos that go with it. So they're listening to it. They're seeing it. They're reading it. And when they come back to the book, they're going to have more confidence to say, I know that word. I've heard that word multiple times, and I can now say that word. So guys, don't underestimate how powerful reading is with your kids, and just the importance of that connection with them, the skills that they're learning, and how it is truly going to set them up for success and continue to make them a confident reader. Let me know if you want to develop a confident reader, because we can do that. And if your kids are not quite to the reading stage, if they're still learning their letters, we have a program for that too. So the Reading Fundamentals program has multiple steps, and I would love to, just chat with you and say, yeah, this could be a good fit. Here's where we would start in the program. So that's the beauty of EduPlay Learning programs, is you get to start wherever it fits best for your child. And maybe one child is in one spot and one child is in another spot. and you can be in those two different spots, right? Within the same program, which I love. And then it just continues to build on those skills. And then that way it grows with your children. So I love that so much. So if that is something you're interested, definitely you can message me Reading Fundamentals. You can send me an email. You can let me know in the Facebook group. And there is a link that you can fill out to just give me some more information. Let me know more about your family, and let me know what are some of the struggles and what are some of the strengths that your children have, and we can find the program that best fits your need. Because this is truly a way to set them up for success, build confidence, independence, and you're going to need it. It's a skill that we all need, and we want to make sure we're setting up a good foundation for them. So don't forget, reach out, Home Education with Ease, Facebook group, all the ways. And guys, I have so much more to share with you next week, so I can't wait to share it. I realize that there's just so much to this topic that I'm so passionate about, and I will just be sharing more on my social media as well of how we incorporated reading throughout the day, like I said. And also I'm going to share some of my skills on my social media platforms as well. So make sure to be following. All of those links are in the show notes below. And remember, this is truly to fit your family's needs. So every family is different, and it's all about finding what works best for your family. And remember, I'm here to walk alongside you every step of the way. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore our programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.